Hello guys, welcome to my channel, Gusty's Plants. So today I have a Hoya care video on Hoya MULTIFLORA. If you guys want to know how I take care of this plant, you just keep on watching. So this plant it's native to Thailand and parts of Malaysia. It's one of those plants that does not really look like a Hoya. If you go to like a Lowe's or a Home Depot and you see this plant, you wouldn't think that this plant is a Hoya, right? Like honestly speaking, it does not look like a Hoya. It's one of those Hoyas that it's a thin leaf Hoya, therefore it does need a little bit more humidity and a little bit more water. Being native to Thailand and Malaysia, you kind of expect that from the get-go. That's why I always say that it's really important for you guys to know where your Hoya is from, so you know what kind of habitat, what kind of climate to give this Hoya. This Hoya did amazing during the summer for me. I got it about a year ago, maybe 8 months ago, and it arrived with panicles already. I did an unboxing for this. In that video, I actually planted in this terracotta pot that was glazed. And it was doing really good. However, it did get a lot of insects, a lot of mealybugs, which I will get to them in a second. But yes, so the habitat of this plant is from Thailand and Malaysia, and therefore you know that this Hoya loves a hot, humid, type of environment. What I did with this Hoya, since I does prefer bright light and a lot of humidity, is I kept it under my tree. I have an Australian finger lime lemon tree, and I placed this plant right under it, and during the summer it busted with so many flowers. I did record this plant full of flowers. I'll insert a clip here if I find it, but it was filled with flowers. It had like maybe 10 flowers, 10 panicles full of blooms, and the flowers produce this juicy nectar that it drips, and it doesn't have a fragrance though. The flower doesn't really have a fragrance, but the nectar that this plant produces, it's really heavy. It's like a very heavy juice dripper with nectar when it comes to the flowers. Right now it's getting cold here in California, and the sun and fall is beginning to start, and my tree started losing some of its leaves, and this plant got exposed to a direct sun, and I left some of the leaves here that were affected with the sun. This plant does not really tolerate sunlight, direct sunlight. It does kill the leaves, and since the leaves are very thin, this plant is very susceptible to losing leaves. So the best condition, if you guys have this Hoya, where would I put this Hoya is I wouldn't not have it indoors. Indoors is like you're killing the Hoya. Unless you have a lot of humidity in your house and a lot of brightness, then you could keep it inside. But for the most part, this Hoya does its best when you have it outdoors. Outdoors under a tree, shaded, where it gets lots of bright light and airflow and a lot of humidity, then it's the best thing. Something that I do recommend for this Hoya is to spray it in the mornings before when you wake up. Spray it with some nice fertilizer, orchid mist, or maybe just regular water, or maybe water with fish fertilizer emulsified, and then spray the leaves and during the morning, and then throughout the day that will evaporate, and that will create nice humidity for this plant. This plant loves humidity. Being a thinner leaf, guys, the watering for this plant, it's very tricky. So you have to keep this plant moist but not wet, and if you let it dry out, that's not a big issue. The big issue with this plant is that when you water it, the water has to dry out really quickly. If you water this plant and it remains soaked for a while, then you probably will kill this plant. This plant is one of the Hoyas that is kind of hard to take care of, in my opinion. A lot of people suffer with this plant, and a lot of the leaves start yellowing and falling off, and they don't know why. That's probably the reason why. For the soil, the mixture that I do have this Hoya is I have it in orchid bark with coconut husks and regular ocean farm soil mixed in with perlite. So when I do water this plant, it stays wet for about a few hours and then it dries out. And that's what this Hoya loves. It loves to be wet for a little bit and moist, but it doesn't like to be sitting in water. And it doesn't like to stay on the dry side for a very long time. Having said this, spraying my orchids in general, my Hoyas in general with the orchid mist, gives plants, especially my Hoyas, they produce peduncles really fast. Let alone I have them outside where they get bright light and sunlight pretty much the whole time. This Hoya produces so many peduncles, it's crazy. It's one of those Hoyas that never stops producing panicles. In the winter, in the summer, it produces panicles. I'm gonna do a close-up right here of some panicles that is actually, even though it's fall and it's not really season for this plant to be growing panicles, this Hoya doesn't care. It just does its own thing and grows panicles left and right. I have some here in different stages, some that already dried up, that already had panicles, some of them that are budding, and then some of them that are already flowering. This Hoya drops the panicles after they flower, but sometimes they don't drop them and they actually, the Hoya stays with them. So this Hoya is kind of, this Hoya likes to do its own thing. Like I said, sometimes the panicle falls off after it flowers, and then sometimes the panicle stays, and then it grows another flower within that same panicle. So bringing it back to the Mealybugs, this Hoya, when I received it, it was really nice and lush and healthy. However, I did cut it down because it got filled with Mealybugs. I guess having it under the trees did affect this plant, because you guys know when you have fruiting trees, you get insects, right, because of the fruits. And since it also produces the flowers with a lot of nectar, I guess the juice from the nectar dropping on the plant I guess attracts more insects, and so this plant got filled with Mealybugs. So I did have to spray this with my fungicide, and I nearly killed this plant, but it bounced back really nicely. You see how lush it is? Well, it arrived really in a really nice condition. However, this plant, it's very easy to get infested with Mealybugs, thrips, and you name it, scale and all that stuff. So this Hoya, it's not a Hoya that I would recommend for beginners. If you guys have this Hoya, you have to be really careful with it. Especially, I would look at the soil and see what soil it comes in. Sometimes when you get it from like Home Depot or Lowe's, they just have it in regular soil. So make sure that you take it out of the soil, inspect the roots, and start making your own soil from the get-go. I would recommend orchid bark with coconut husks, perlite with regular soil, and a little bit of liquid fertilizer every watering, and then you should be fine. As long as the soil doesn't remain wet for too long and it dries out really fast, then you should be fine. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was really helpful for you guys, and if you guys have any other question regarding this Hoya multiflora, then just leave me a comment down below. But anyways, thank you so much for watching guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye, and remember, like I always say, don't forget to drink water and water your plants. Bye bye.